love riding my bike. I love running. I don't care what they think about it. I love it.
At that point, when I knew I was going to win, chills just went up and down my entire body.
I don't believe there are any good or bad foods. Food is food.
I still feel so passionate about getting that record that I'm like, I'm just going to do it.
As an athlete, I was like, what's my story, or what's your story? What can you learn from it? And what can you teach people?
Welcome to the IronWomen podcast. I'm Haley Chura, and I'm flying solo this week as my usual co-host, Alyssa Godesky, is currently crossing the United States by recreational vehicle as the crew chief and support for a team of cyclists in the Race Across America. They started earlier this week in California and are riding 24/7 across the entire country, and hopefully will finish later this week on the East Coast. And if all goes well, Alyssa should be back next week with some great stories about her travels and life as a crew chief. So definitely come back next week to hear more from Alyssa. Before we jump into the show today, I wanted to let you know that you can now enroll in our Feisty Fueled course. So this year on IronWomen, we've had some great conversations with a registered dietitian, a nutrition coach, and these conversations have had a profound impact on my own fueling in both races and day-to-day life. So since then, I've worked on getting more calories in during training, and I'm really working on my race nutrition as well. I've also skipped the diet fads like ketones and cold plunges with confidence, and I enjoy my prebiotic sodas in moderation. I'm also doing my best to eat 130 grams of protein per day, which is much harder than I ever expected and has led me to discover a newfound love for cottage cheese. If you have enjoyed those shows and you want to learn even more, the team at Feisty created the Fueled course to help you avoid mistakes like underfueling or falling for the latest social media diet fad. The Feisty Fueled course aims to help you understand how body image and mindset impact your fueling choices, how your body uses different types of food, how things can shift as your hormones change, and how you can fuel to feel and perform your best. You'll have lifetime access to the course and opportunities to learn with a group of your peers and meet with experts to answer questions that come up during the course. By the end, you'll put together a fueling plan that works for you with your lifestyle and your goals. The last day to enroll is June 28th, and you can go to womensperformance.com/fueled for more information and to enroll. The big sports news in my life right now is watching the U.S. Olympic swimming trials. I swam the 200 backstroke in the 2004 and 2008 U.S. Olympic trials, and my best finish came in 2004, where I finished 9th place in the 200 backstroke. I was 18 years old at that meet, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. I was so nervous. Going into that meet. I don't think I had swam particularly well that summer, and I was really unsure how I would do going into prelims, and I just remember being really nervous. A few of my teammates at the University of Georgia had really incredible races in the days leading up to my event, so that gave me a little confidence, and I was really inspired by their performances, but getting behind the blocks was a little intimidating. And I remember in prelims, I think I had possibly the best swim of my life up to that point. I just felt amazing, and I finished in the top 16. So I got to come back for semifinals that night. And that was an even cooler experience. If you've been watching the trials this year, you know they make a pretty big deal. It wasn't quite as big a deal back in 2004 in Long Beach, but it was still a really big deal. You get your name announced, you get to walk out, and it's just a very, very memorable life experience. And in that semifinals race, I again went a best time. But I missed qualifying for finals. Only the top 8 go to finals, and I finished 9th by 2/100ths of a second. I also remember that this meet was held outdoors in Long Beach, California. This was one of the first meets that was held in these temporary pools that now they're able to put in football stadiums. And I didn't have a line to follow above my head because you just have the sky, and I didn't have a lot of experience swimming outdoors. And I managed to hit the lane line on both sides of the lane. Oh, it's such a cringe moment, but still won a best time. But I did miss out on that finals experience, which would have been the next day, which is a little sad, I think. But ultimately, I'm so proud that I got to experience that. I got to experience swimming in trials, and watching these 2024 trials 20 years later, I'm just in awe of all the athletes, and actually, like I said, proud of myself for ever having been there. I think it's an incredible experience, and I have so much admiration for everyone who gets behind the blocks, because it is a little intimidating. So this year's event is being held in Indianapolis in the Lucas Oil Stadium. It's the same stadium that Taylor Swift will be playing in this October. And it's also the site of, I think, the occasional pro football game. I kid, but it's a really incredible venue. It's so cool to see swimming happening in this big and dramatic venue with massive screens. I think there's a lift that like lifts the medalists up when they make the Olympic team, and they get to like rise up, and it looks incredible. And swimming should be getting this kind of attention. It's great to see it happening. If you've been paying attention to the performances at the trials, you probably saw 46-year-old Gabrielle Rose become the oldest trials competitor and finish an incredible 10th place in the 100-meter breaststroke with a personal best time of 1 minute and 8 seconds. That is so fast, so fast. And as someone who was recently crowned the oldest or near oldest in a couple T100 triathlon events, watching Gabrielle swim a PR at age 46 is so inspiring. And it's extra cool for me because Gabrielle actually does have a triathlon connection. Her brother Matthew is my coach. I met him, I think it's been almost 15 years, at Dynamo Multisport, which is where I got my start in the sport. And he has been my coach ever since. He also coaches a couple other pro women, and watching her swim and the inspiration I'm getting from Gabrielle, and then looking back on my own career and how far I've come under Matthew's guidance, I can just say I'm extremely grateful for the Rose family's continuing contribution to the sport. And some of these women like Gabrielle and some of the other incredible athletes at these trials, I think Gretchen Walsh and her world record in the 100 fly, the American record I just saw Reagan Smith set in the 100 backstroke, they're motivating me to, continue to work in the pool with what I have, and then also make the most of my time in the gym in the coming weeks. I love seeing how strong everyone looks. Again, I feel like I'm overusing the word inspiring, but motivating, it's what gets you out of bed sometimes, watching other people do these incredible events and incredible feats. Another IronWomen connection to the trials is through Olympian and silver medalist Elizabeth Beisel, who in this iteration of the Olympic trials, you'll see doing on-deck interviews. So Elizabeth was on our show a few years ago, and it's so cool to see her interviewing the new and multi-time Olympians. She's doing an incredible job. And as someone who does the occasional interview, I'm really, really impressed with her work. I especially enjoyed her chat with Katie Ledecky after Katie made her 4th Olympic team just after her win in the 400 free. It was just an incredibly professional chat on both sides by two women that I admire so much. And I just feel really grateful that I get to watch Katie swim, get to watch her navigate media as such a professional. And, I'm going to be cheering her on in Paris and hopefully beyond. And then also watching Elizabeth step into this new role so well. Very cool to see. So the swimming trials run all week, and you can watch them on NBC or stream them on Peacock. I know the finals are happening every night for me at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Very much must-see TV here in Montana. And if fast swimming isn't enough for you, the U.S. Olympic track and field trials start on Friday. So those are also on NBC and Peacock, and they run through the end of the month. So we're just getting started with an incredible summer of sports, and it's cool. It's the best thing that's happening for me right now, I think, for my own athletic career, is watching these incredible performances. And again, realizing that I want to be like those people. Maybe not exactly in the same event, but I want to be someone who works hard and goes after my goals and maybe occasionally gets to swim in a really cool pool or body of open water, more likely on my end these days. But it's very cool to see what's happening in the sports and the coverage they're getting right now. If you have any thoughts that you'd like to share or questions for myself or Alyssa when she returns, you can always write into our mailbag. That email address is ironwomenpodcast@gmail.com. And we do love answering your questions. This week, I also have a great interview for you. So back in 2019, Alyssa and I did a pretty in-depth interview with Skye Moench just before her huge win at the Ironman European Championships in Frankfurt. So much has happened in Skye's life since that big win. She had the incredible lows of a bike crash that kept her out of Kona that year, to the highs of several more Ironman wins and podiums, a 4th place finish at the Ironman World Championships in St. George, 2 top 10 finishes in Kona, and a huge win in a then American record time of 8 hours and 22 minutes at Ironman Florida last fall. This year, following a great start to the season with an 8th place finish at the inaugural T100 race in Miami, Skye surprised us all with an announcement that she is pregnant with her first child. And while she is putting a pause on her race season, she is still very much staying active in the sport, including a step into the world of triathlon podcasting with her very own show. So from pregnancy to podcasting to body image to finances, Skye is an athlete who's open to share her experiences on nearly every subject. She is an incredible competitor. I've had the honor of racing with her a few times, and it's always a fierce, fierce race when Skye is on the line. I am so happy to bring this conversation to you, and I will have my full chat with Skye Moench right after the break. Hi, Skye. Welcome back to the IronWomen podcast.
Hi, Haley. Thanks for having me back. It's been a minute, I think.
It has been a little while. Well,
Yeah.
Also, you've become like the queen of surprising announcements lately because I feel like we had you choosing to do the T100, the PTO's T100 tour as the reigning American record holder in the Ironman. You were going to forego that Ironman series. Then, of course, came your pregnancy announcement, which we're going to talk more about that later. But most recently, you are now a podcaster. So welcome to the podcasting ranks.
Hey, thanks. It feels good to be here. I've always loved podcasting. Like, I've always enjoyed doing interviews and things, and just that longer length. Being able to say everything versus trying to say it concisely on Instagram. I don't know. I like it.
Yeah, I do want to ask about that, like different formats of social media, because I feel like you have done everything. We've seen you do YouTube.
Yeah.
We've seen you do Instagram Reels, daily Instagram Reels leading up to a race, regular Instagram posts, and now your own podcast. So what was the thought process behind starting Sky's the Limit?
Yeah. So I obviously, well, maybe not obviously, I like sharing, and I've always been open to sharing like anything, but I feel like in my head I'm sharing everything, but on Instagram I'm really not, because I don't know, like I just don't want to write a novel every time I post, or you're like, oh, I don't have a pretty picture to post, like just all this stupid pressures of Instagram. And kind of the time element of it, like if you post a bunch of Instagram stories and I find that I'm on my phone a lot, or anytime I post on Instagram, I just end up being on my phone a lot. So I just always felt like I wanted to share more than Instagram. So that's why I did some YouTube, and I liked doing that. But the hard part about YouTube is I can't just do that myself, right? Like I need someone to film me, and then the editing is more complex, the sound, the imaging, the colors, like all that stuff is just more complex. So I did get some YouTube videos out, but no, I couldn't maintain it consistently because just paying someone to do it, or like it wasn't good for my marriage to have my husband do it, like me telling him what to do all the time with it. So it's been over a year, honestly, since I've talked about doing a podcast with like family and friends. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna do this. And then like I bought this mic in August last year, I think. And then here we are, just finally using it. But anyway, all of that is to say, I've wanted to share more about my journey. I feel like it's important to do so as a professional, and especially if you're not winning world championships, it's like you kind of need to tell your story more, like if you have incredible results, everyone wants to know what you're up to. Otherwise, it's like building the story and what you're up to. So yeah, I wanted to start it before I was pregnant. I just never got around to it. I didn't make time for it ultimately, right? Like you just procrastinate it. And it's easy to do that when you're training full time. So that's what I did. And then I just knew I'm like, okay, well, I'm pregnant now. It's going to be now more than ever, it's important that I share my story and stay connected with, my followers and the triathlon community. And I just felt like podcasts would be the best and easiest way for me to do that. So yeah.
And you've recorded 2 episodes that I've heard so far.
Yeah.
And they were both solo episodes, which I, as a fellow podcaster, I find that so hard.
Really?
What was it like to sit down for that first episode that you recorded? Or did you record something earlier and never release it?
No, I just sat down and recorded those.
Did you have an outline or did you just go like cold turkey?
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts pop into my head or things will happen and I'm like, okay, this is so relatable or like I should share this. So I just have a notes page in my phone, and I'll just write down thoughts. And then kind of before I sat down to do those first 2 episodes, I would just try to narrow it down to a few topics, I guess, or a few things I definitely wanted to hit and not all the details. For sure, not all the details. We're talking like a few lines of like, okay, yeah, let's talk about, how I feel about getting pregnant and let's talk about how I got pregnant. But yeah, so there is some planning, but it's not like I have this Word document with like 20 bullet points for each topic. So yeah, I basically sat down and just winged it, but I don't know. I found it quite easy. I guess there's some podcasts I listen to that are sometimes solo episodes. So I don't know. I guess I had an idea for what that would be like. And I don't plan for them all to be solo episodes, but at the same time, a lot of it is for me just to talk about like what I'm experiencing. So, yeah, I think I'll continue to do some solo episodes and then do some guest episodes as well.
And do you edit it yourself?
Yeah, I have.
Is that hard for you to listen to your own voice?
What's funny? I usually never, ever listen to podcasts that I do. Like, I will never listen to this interview that we're doing right now. Sorry.
Really? No,
Don't worry.
It doesn't hurt my feeling.
I'll download your other episodes. I'll even download this one. I'm just not going to listen to it. But like,
fair enough.
I would never listen to my own episodes or any podcast interview. Maybe once in a while I would just to hear what I sounded like, or if I was saying a million times, then I would think, okay, get a grip on all the filler words. So I would do it for my own feedback, and there I just said But anyway, so but editing it myself, no, I didn't find it as difficult. I don't know why. Maybe because I wanted to do it, but I want to do this too. So I don't know what the difference is.
I struggle with this personally. And actually listening to yours, I was like, wow, she doesn't say very often. And I find that very, very impressive because it has taken me years. And I listen to a lot of the episodes and we'll try to be like, okay, get to the point or avoid the filler words, especially if you're the person who has to edit, because even if you want to take those out, then it's your own more work for you.
Yeah.
And so it is hard. I mean, sometimes they're part of natural language, so you don't want to like get rid of all of them, but like, I do find that listening to my own voice is okay, but sometimes I really hate looking at like pictures of myself on Instagram or editing video of myself or something like that. It depends on the mood I'm in. I don't know.
For sure.
So,
do you edit the podcast or someone else does that?
Lydia edits a podcast.
Okay.
Like Lydia Russell, who is actually a really great NCAA triathlete. She edits the podcast most of the time. Occasionally certain episodes I will edit, especially if I've recorded something kind of last minute and I can't just dump that on someone else who's also in school and racing and all that.
Right.
It's beyond her job responsibilities, but I have learned a lot about that. And I think ultimately it's kind of maybe a better speaker, but I don't know. But I just, you don't have a background in broadcasting, do you? Or anything like that? Or did you speak in other other no, just from doing triathlon interviews?
I guess I've always been okay speaking. I've never been afraid to speak. Maybe helps. And then I've been through college, just the usual things. I've had jobs, things where I've had to like speak.
But you were
Obviously,
a
my
tax
job.
accountant. Tax accountants
Yeah.
aren't known for speaking.
Yeah, but you'd have to go to lunches with clients or whatever. So it's not like my job was ever, oh, I'm a presenter, but I'm comfortable speaking to other people. And then through triathlon, I guess I've done more technical speaking engagements or, go speak to youth groups or something here locally. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I just also spend a lot of time in my head. So like with the podcast, I I have these ideas pop in my head. So then I'm thinking about them, right? They're brewing. Like I have an episode in my head right now that I need to dump because I've been thinking about all these things. So maybe that helps thinking it through. But it's not like it's memorized or programmed.
Since you have tried every format of social media, I am curious, like, do you have sponsor obligations to do XYZ in social media, or is this all self-driven and the sponsors just get the bonus?
Yeah, it's mostly self-driven. I think technically I do have a few contracts that require monthly posts on my Instagram, but there's no sponsors are saying, "Hey, Skye, we really need more exposure. You need more social media exposure." I guess for me, I enjoy doing it. I like sharing. I think I think a lot of times people are afraid to share because it's vulnerable, but I just see us all as human and we're all just going through, we don't all have the same life, but a lot of us are going through the same things. I mean, even since I've published my podcast episodes, I've had many women reach out to me and say, what I was saying resonated so well with them, or they're women who want to have children, but they're afraid of giving up their career in sport or, their love for sport and all these things. So I just think it's helpful and I'm just a human and one day I'll die and none of this will matter anyway, I guess. It just, that sounds a bit harsh, but I don't know. It's just life.
I admire your vulnerability, and you were very vulnerable in those first two episodes. You talked a lot about your pregnancy announcement,
Yeah.
and so it has been a couple weeks since you made that announcement, and I'm curious if anything has surprised you. Maybe the amount of people who have reached out to you. Is there anything else that just has surprised you about making that announcement? Was it different than you expected?
Um, I don't know that it was different, the announcement per se. I mean, I guess what was kind of different is I talked about this in my podcast, but I felt bad about ditching St. George last minute and saying I was not feeling well, which was true. I mean, I was not feeling totally myself because I'm growing a human, but I felt bad about that. And it's just funny how once you tell someone you're pregnant, it's like everything else, nothing matters. No one remembers that you didn't, all these things just, I think I'm surprised by how excited everyone is about it because I don't know. I also understand that people follow me because I'm an athlete and I do Ironman and I can be competitive at races and things like that. So in a way, it's hard not to feel like I'm letting people down, but it's cool to just see how excited everyone actually is and how this is, I don't want to say "Oh, this is way better than any racing I could do, but people just recognize that this is I don't know, a life opportunity that you can't get on the race course, I guess. It's cool.
And you did put out a call to action if anyone had bra suggestions.
Yeah,
And
do
this
you
is
have
something,
any?
well, no, I'm curious because last week Alyssa and I did like a Q&A for beginners.
Yeah.
And that was I think one of the questions someone had written in about wearing a bra. And Alyssa and I both are like a little underqualified to answer
Yeah.
that. So I was actually curious if you had gotten any good recommendations for like a really good running bra when you are a little more well endowed.
Yeah, which is crazy. I can't wait to have my small boobs back. I'm not joking. I mean, they're still relatively quite small, but for me, they just feel so much bigger. Um, I think I got one in my Instagram. I'd have to search for it, but I haven't received any like links sent directly to me for ideal sports bras. So I did get myself, I don't remember if I said this on the podcast, but I have bought myself a handful of new bralettes, which are just, I'm wearing one right now, just can barely feel them, on my body, but they're not really appropriate for like running. So that's been a huge help. That just relieves me of having these large breasts.
Well, we'll keep the call to action going out. IronWomenPodcast at
Yeah.
gmail.com. I'll forward on any suggestions we get. But Holly Lawrence is another pro triathlete who is also
Yeah.
recently announced pregnancy. And she was also on the Chasing the Burn podcast a few weeks ago. And she kind of mentioned the PTO and T100's maternity policy, because we did a show about this like years ago when the PTO first announced its maternity policy and
Yeah.
how they would freeze the rankings and that year-end bonus would be paid out for over like, I think 15 months or something like
Yeah.
that. But it sounded like from here talking to Holly that there was no necessarily maternity policy for T100 specific athletes. Do you have any
Yeah.
insight on that?
It's funny you ask because I've been meaning to link up for the last couple of weeks. I've been on and off chatting with Dylan McNeese, who's, the guy who is the main coordinator with all the pro athletes. And we've been meaning to link up to talk about the policy. And I haven't yet received like an official email with a policy, but I've heard things. So I don't have an official update, but from what I've heard, T100 initially came out quite generous financially on the policy, but that it maybe lacked some support for post baby opportunities and things like that. So Ruth Astel's on the athlete committee, and she reached out to me before I announced I was pregnant. And she's like, hey, we're trying to get feedback from women, T100 women, on the maternity policy because we want to know what would be valuable to female athletes who have babies. And so that's where she said, I think financially that they're being quite generous, but we want to make sure that what you need would actually be met. So I am curious to see what they come up with for postpartum support. My feedback for them was that they should provide the female athletes the same opportunities that they had before having a baby, because that's what's been hard to watch. For example, with Katie Zafiris, she couldn't even get into races that previously she was winning or podiuming at because her ranking just tanked. And did WTCS change that since Katie? I don't know.
I'm not sure. I'm not super familiar.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily think that the T100 should guarantee you a contract the next year. I personally don't want that pressure of racing immediately. I want to give my body the time to heal that it needs and just, I plan to get back to racing within the year, but I don't want the pressure to be like 4 months later, I need to be on a T100 start line with the best women in the world. But I do think what would be helpful for women postpartum would be that, say, once I'm back racing, then T100 would give me preferential treatment for a wild card or something like that, just to maybe proves the wrong word, but just to show that, yeah, I'm coming back. And if I'm showing fitness, then maybe my contract's reinstated or something. But my feedback was I didn't want something that would cause undue pressure because there's just so many unknowns with having a baby. Not that I've done it before, but I just have no idea how I'm going to respond, how my body's going to respond, what my baby's going to be like, what my childcare situation is going to be like, all these things. And yeah, I just think as long as we can get the opportunities back without having to go crazy, like racing all around the world 50 times just to get our ranking up, that's crazy. But I also don't think that it should just be like, hey, yeah, here's your contract and you're not even fit yet. I don't want to be racing the best women in the world if I'm not ready to do that or competitive.
And you did share numbers about your
Yeah, I
PTO
did.
contract for 2024 on your podcast. And so we're talking $70,000 to $100,000 that you are guaranteed. Is that money it sounds like you don't know for sure, but is that money?
Yeah, I don't know for sure.
You don't know what's happening with your 2024 contract.
So the 70, and the only reason I shared it is because Frederick Funk shared on the Triathlon Hour his numbers So I was like, okay, well, of course, if a dude does it first, like then I can do it too. So that's how it goes, right? Anyway, so the 70,000 is the marketing contract. So that is what I would get paid basically just to show up at races. And the 100K was like that would be the minimum I would get if I raced each race based on like prize money, even if I placed last place or something. So for me now not racing, it really goes down to like the 70K number versus the 100K. So if, if the PTO comes out, or not PTO, T100 comes out and says, hey, our maternity policy is that we'll pay you your full marketing contract, then I may be getting paid the full 70,000 this year, which would be extremely helpful. Like that would relieve so much pressure off me. I think especially next year, because right now I'm not spending a lot of money to be a triathlete, right? I'm not traveling the world. I'm not even paying a coach. I'm not getting massage weekly. Like there are so many expenses that I don't have right now, but next year I'm going to have way more expenses if I come back to racing, right? Which I plan to do. So whether it's extra travel expense because I need to travel with my mom plus a baby, or like if I need to hire a full-time nanny, something like that. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I imagine it's going to be expensive. And not to mention like the medical bills of having a baby and even like pelvic floor therapy, all these things that I will pay for. So it, yeah, I'm excited to see what T100 comes up with, and I think it could be very, very helpful to me and any future woman who gets pregnant.
And we talked about your surprising announcement that you were racing the T100 series this
Oh
year
yeah.
prior to your pregnancy versus Ironman Pro Series. And you did talk about this pregnancy was planned and you were planning to get pregnant this year. Did that factor in? Because as far as I know, Ironman Pro Series does not have any kind of maternity policy.
No, in fact, the only real maternity benefit, if we can call that Ironman has, which I wouldn't expect them to have more, right? Because, Ironman only pays me to go to races or to win races or whatever, right? Like it's based off being at a race and prize money. But the only real benefit, I guess, that I will be getting is that I already had a slot for Nice this year. And so that will roll to next year's Kona. So I don't have to worry about that, which is really
That's
nice.
good.
Yeah, that's really nice. And I even think when I emailed them and asked if that's what would happen, I also said, what if there's a scenario where I would like to roll it to Nice 2026, excuse me, six, like who knows? But I'm not worried about that because even if something happened and I couldn't race Kona next year, like I would be racing Ironmans and qualify for Nice again. I'm not worried about qualifying for Nice, is I guess what I'm saying. Kona, I still think I could qualify for it, but it would put a lot of pressure on me, right? To be like in good Ironman shape quite quickly. Because Kona will be 10 and a half months after giving birth, which sounds maybe like a lot, but in my head, it doesn't sound like that much time. So yeah.
Time moves so fast. So did the thought that
Did it
maybe
play
you
in?
would get pregnant? Yeah. Did that go into your thought about doing T100 this year at all?
Um, it definitely crossed my mind because obviously there's definitely no maternity benefit doing Ironman. It's like if you race, you make money. If you don't, you don't. And I knew that PTO at least had their PTO maternity policy because PTO does still have that maternity policy. Obviously, the contract I signed with T100 didn't have a maternity policy, but I knew that maybe it wouldn't be out of the question. But that's not why I signed for sure. But did it cross my mind? Yeah, it did. But I talked about why I ultimately chose T100 over Ironman. So yeah.
And part of keeping that pressure off, I mean, I think it's fantastic that Ironman would, push it to 2026 if you needed it, because we want you on a start line. We want you coming back and we don't want you feeling any pressure.
Yeah.
But you also talked about, another way to take that pressure off is that you've actually taken a break from working with your triathlon coach, David Tilbury Davis. And I am curious about that. But then also I just talked to your nutrition coach. I know there's many people on your team, but I just talked to your nutrition coach, Scott Tyndall, a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Are you still working with Scott? Because I can see where nutrition is still a very big part of your life,
Yeah.
but maybe not in the same way. I was just curious about which coaches you're still working with, and if you just took a break from everyone.
Yeah, so I guess just to clarify on the Ironman thing, they didn't say, yeah, we'd for sure roll it to 2026.
Oh,
I just asked like, hey, would that be a possibility? And they said if that's a discussion, if there's a reason to have this discussion a year from now, then we can have that discussion. But for now, it's just rolled to. So it
fair
sounded like
enough.
there's
That's fair
maybe
enough.
flexibility. Yeah, it sounded like maybe there was
You should roll
flexibility.
it for like 30 years.
I'm like, yeah, can I come back to the pro field when I'm 70?
Yeah. When your
Yeah.
kids are in college, you're like, there's my
Yeah.
slot. Ironman Florida 2023 slot. Yeah.
Seriously.
No, okay. Fair enough. That's fair
Anyway,
enough.
I just wanted to clarify that. Like the official stance is that it'll roll to the next year's World
Okay.
Championship. But it seems like they, have
They seemed reasonable.
they seemed reasonable. They were like, great. Well, if there's a conversation we need to have, let us know. Anyway, okay. So the coaches I'm working with, yeah, I'm not working with David Tillery Davis, but we are still in touch. He just texted me today and he's like, hey, let's catch up later this week. So, he just checks in, keeps the relationship alive. But yeah, no coaching at all. And then with Scott's a little bit different because I'm sponsored by Fuelin working. So I'm not necessarily paying Scott, right, as my coach. So he just said, I'll support you in however you need. Which, to be fair, David would too. Like if I said, hey, David, will you give me a few workouts? He'd probably do it and not charge me an arm and a leg. So anyway, Scott was like, let me know. It's business as usual, book calls whenever you want. But I have not spoken to him in a few weeks, maybe a month at this point. And it's not that nutrition isn't important, but it's kind of the same reason as why I'm not working with David is that every day is so variable. Like I don't know how I'm going to feel. I don't know what training I'm going to be doing most days. Like I kind of plan if I'm swimming with my friends the night before. But then even if I'm riding bikes with my friends, like with Megan, Megan, I'll usually swim with Megan in the morning and then we're like, oh, should we ride bikes later? And then we go ride bikes later. So a big part of working with Scott is like the day-to-day nutrition is dialed in based on my training plan. And I just don't have a training plan right now. And then in terms of like the day-to-day nutrition, I've learned a lot working with Scott and, just other nutritionists or whatever. Like I've learned so much about what I need and what I should be getting in and I have an idea of macros like protein and all that. So I'm trying to eat as well as I can as I can stand to, which I've actually been able to eat quite okay. But yeah, I'm not following like a strict nutrition plan. I'm just aware of, okay, let's get good protein in and fruits and veggies and things like that. But I'm also very much like enjoying my life. I'm not just like pigging out every day, but if I want to go have a nice meal or whatever, dessert, all that stuff, like I'm not even trying to resist, I'm like, yeah, let's go to dinner. So yeah.
In recent months, you have spoken a lot about weight and body image. And I am just curious if you feel like you've been like that's even a bigger part of your narrative than maybe some of your races now.
Yeah. What about it? Like,
well, just
am I dealing with it now?
Yeah. Like, is that hard for you? I mean, I'm bringing it up right now, but it can kind of overshadow, oh my goodness, you went 8:22, an American record at Ironman Florida, but it seemed like the bigger story was what your coach had said to you, your previous coach. We're not talking about David, but I feel like it almost overshadowed the American record. That was my perspective. Is that yours? Really? Or did I make that up?
No, I mean, you would know better than me because I'm on the other side of it, right? So the thing about the body image and the weight and everything, I only wanted to share that. One, I felt like there was part of me that felt like I couldn't be totally genuine about that sort of thing without saying, hey, here's been my experience. And then I also wanted other women to know, like, you don't have to be rail thin to be strong and to be fast. And then as well, like, I think it's important for coaches to understand, like, here's not a good way to talk to an athlete about their weight, So fortunately, I do think we've come a long way with that, but I do still think obviously it's out there where athletes are pressured to lose weight. So I don't feel it probably seems like more of my identity than what I identify with, even though I do feel very strongly and passionately about it. Like I want to do a whole episode on my podcast about body image and all that stuff. But yeah, I will say though, like being pregnant now and my body changing and being a little heavier and all that, I find myself like having to almost remind myself that I'm like growing a human. Like it's kind of a weird feeling to be in the middle of summer, well, coming up on summer where I'm usually getting quite fit. And instead I'm getting like less fit. And I'm supposed to be gaining a pound a week for like the next 3 months now. So like the body image thing is really top of mind for me right now because my body's changing a lot and I don't look like the athlete that I looked like even 3 months ago, stuff like that. So I do think there's a lot I can say about it. And I'm learning a lot about it. Because even being pregnant, I mean, I think in general, we should never compare ourselves and our bodies to other people's because I think I would do that with other women I've trained with before. And then like years later, I'd find out they had an eating disorder. And I was like, oh, they weren't even eating, or they were like throwing up everything they ate. No wonder they looked so lean. And I'm sitting over here feeling bad about the way I look because I don't look as lean, even though I'm just as fast. So I guess what I'm saying is with pregnancy, I'm feeling that same way, right? Like I'll go look at other athletes who are pregnant and I'm like, oh, they look so fit still, like third trimester, and they look just as fit as they did. They just have this bump or whatever. And you just can't compare. And even with pregnancy bumps, like you can't compare. There's nothing wrong if you're already showing at 15 weeks and some people aren't going to show till like 24 weeks or something. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. So, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about body image.
I mean, I'm glad you're sharing them because I do think your experiences, as you have alluded to,
Yeah,
are not as unique. And I find that in my own life sometimes when I like have a hard time and then I'm like, wow, I'm just like everyone else.
everyone, literally
Yeah.
everyone.
And it's freeing. It's wonderful. But it does take a lot to put that out there, especially when your job is sort of entertainment in a way,
Yeah.
and sport. And then I think it's important to also not lose sight of your incredible athletic accomplishments because they are incredible. And so I do want to talk about Ironman Florida because you went 8:22 American record, incredible win there. It came only weeks after your 7th place finish at the Ironman World
Oh
Champs
yeah.
in Kona. I mean, when you look back at your career so far, because it hasn't been that long, does that stand out to you as your best performance, or is something else out there that we should be celebrating even more?
It's funny, I am not one to dwell a lot on my successes or my failures. Even though I'm very proud of them and I'm very happy when the successes happen, I don't necessarily I guess I don't know how to answer that except that Florida, I think, was a really, really good performance. Was it like my highest ever normalized power or average power? I don't think so. I mean, it was one of my best probably. If we're just going by the numbers. Definitely my best marathon off the bike ever, which I was pumped about. Not my best swim. Last year was not the best year for my swimming, but
The Florida
so
swim, you give yourself a pass on that. But wait, 254 marathon? Is that
yeah,
is that
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so fast.
Yeah, like I'd been wanting that. Out of anything on that day, all I wanted to do was run faster than I'd ever run before. And that's a true marathon course, like it's not short, it's legit. So, um yeah, all I wanted that day was to run fast. I wanted to win as well, but like if I won and I didn't run fast, I still would have been annoyed. So, running fast was like my top thing that I wanted to do because I hadn't run sub 3 since 2021. So I ran my first sub 3 hour marathon in 2021 and then I didn't do it again. And like I raced 3 or 4 Ironmans a year. So that was like 2022, 2023, and then most of 2024 not running sub 3. And I just I just knew I was capable of it and more than what I'd done before. So yeah, that's that's what stands out as my biggest accomplishment in that race. Um, I think for me, maybe my biggest accomplishment overall in my career is just the fact that I took myself from an accountant to being successful and being able to win races. And honestly, like when I started out on my triathlon journey from my desk at Ernst and Young, and I think just meeting with my first coach and all these things, I think in my head what I thought would have been a really good career for me as a pro would just be a top 10 result in Kona. Like that would have just blown me out of the water if I could get top 10. Because at the beginning, that just seemed so unattainable. I'd never done an Ironman and I was so far off the ranks. So, and I've done that twice, and neither of them were like perfect races. In fact, the first year when I got ninth was actually horrible. My marathon was like 3:19, like horrible. So, the swim and bike were decent on that year, to be fair.
And that was 2022. We were missing a few aid stations out there. That was an
that's
excessively brutal marathon.
But you know what else I'm really proud of, actually? One of the races I'm most proud of is St. George Worlds, which was early 2022. I was fourth place. I believed I could be on the podium, and that's what I was gunning for all day. I had amazing training leading into it, and that was like I've said multiple times, that's the most destroyed I've ever been at the end of an Ironman. I literally gave everything I had on that day, and that was a really satisfying result as well. And I think it made me believe, I think that is a result that made me really believe like, oh, top 10 isn't so difficult. Like we should be shooting higher. Like let's shoot for the podium sort of thing. So anyway, yeah.
If you were to give advice to a tax accountant now, do you think that's still a possible path? Do you think that is a path that someone could follow in your footsteps?
That is a big it depends answer, because I think for someone who is identical to my strengths and weaknesses, that would be more difficult. Um, like the Skye in 2015 when I started this, if that Skye was starting now, I think it'd be very, very hard because the swim would be so bad. Like my swim's gotten better. I've improved my swim over the years. So I think that would be really hard. It's taken years of development. I think it just depends. Like if someone comes into the sport, is good at swimming, can get with the right coach, get the right team, and has the resources to just put their head down and work really hard at it for a few years to actually get good at it, then I think it could be possible. I'm never going to say it's not possible, but I do think it's getting more difficult for someone like me to come in and make a living. I will say that. Like, I'm glad I started when I did because I do think it's getting harder. And it's simply just because the level is getting higher and then the strength of fields are just getting higher. There's more competitive women. There's just more competitive people. Before you could get away with being a not great swimmer and just biking so hard and being an okay runner, and like that would win you races and maybe even get you a podium at the world champs, like seriously. And now you can't have a weakness if you want to perform at the top level, I think. So
And it sounds like you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that doesn't mean you have to be the best at every sport, but you have to be very, very solid. Yeah.
But it sounds like you aren't super attached to that American record label.
Well, Jackie already broke it, I think.
I know. I was going to ask about that. I mean,
Yeah.
I was looking on tryrating.com earlier to say Torsten Rad's website, and he does put an asterisk or Ironman Hamburg. I think he's
really?
certain about the length of the course. But it's up for debate, but it sounds like you're happy for Jackie and happy to hand over that, or
I mean, it's cool. Honestly, the American record thing, this is funny, and this is a good place because this is like the IronWomen podcast. But Rudy Von Berg also broke, I don't know if he broke the American record, but he broke a course record. We both broke course records. It was a record-breaking day. Rudy broke it, and like he got more attention, and I kind of called out one of the news outlets for it. I'm like, I broke it too. So I guess I don't feel like the American record got a lot of hype from my perspective, and whatever, I don't need it, but like I guess I don't think it got a lot of hype, so I'm not that attached to it. And records are going to be broken. Like that's just how it is. We just keep getting faster. So I maybe didn't expect it to get broken so quickly because it was quite fast. I mean, yeah, it's just how it
Yeah,
is.
8:22, and we saw Jackie. Of course, that's Jackie Herring, 8:19 in Ironman
Yeah.
Hamburg a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we just need a record eligible courses and
Yeah,
and we'll just
seriously,
see
like this is a record eligible course. Yeah, that's a good idea.
what's they have been running, right? But
True.
no, but I think it's exciting. It's exciting to see both of you because I feel like you are kind of contemporaries who have like raced. Well, I mean, Jackie's older than both of us, but like have raced quite a bit and have very interesting stories. And then now
Yeah.
that, it is fun to see these American women doing so well. I'm going back to your vulnerability, if I can say that
Yeah.
word. You are not afraid to speak publicly about really tough topics. I mean, fertility, potential for miscarriage, body image, domestic abuse. So
Yeah.
what drives you to talk about these subjects and bring them up?
Well, I think it's what I said earlier. I just recognize that honestly, we're all human and not everyone has the same life experience, but everyone has difficulties in life. And some seem more difficult and dramatic than others, but ultimately, I don't know. No one has it all together. No one's life is perfect. No one's perfect. We all just go through these things. I can't control a lot of what I went through. Like, I can't control my upbringing and the what my dad did to my mom. Like, that's completely out of my control. Why wouldn't I be able to talk about it and not be embarrassed or ashamed, you know? And I mean, there was a time where that was embarrassing for me because I was a teenager or when it was happening in the moment, it was very embarrassing. But now as a grown woman, it's like that's actually something that made me stronger and like made me who I am. So I don't know. I also just think people sharing their stories, I think once you share your story, you realize how much other people are impacted by it. And I was reminded of that again, even just sharing what I shared on my first couple episodes on the podcast of these women reaching out to me. Thanks for sharing that. This feels, really close to home for me right now, just different things. And people look to you as kind of a source of inspiration and that's not what I'm aiming to be, but I just recognize that it can help other people. And like I said, one day I'm going to die and none of it's going to matter. I guess just trying to live with a little less fear and all that. And um, yeah, I don't know. I like people who keep it real. It's boring when people are fake and won't like let's just talk about how real life is. So yeah, I don't have anything to hide. I would share anything. I've shared a lot, maybe too much sometimes.
Well,
But
on that Triathlon Hour podcast where you are
oh
talking
yeah,
about body image, and you did speak that you were a little nervous about the backlash and potential
true.
backlash. And I mean, in this day and age, there are a lot of keyboard warriors and they will climb onto anything. And it's
Yeah,
very hard. I mean, I know that this is like a human psychology thing where like you can get 90 really nice comments and like two really bad ones and you fixate on the two, right?
yeah.
I mean, are you just a person who's able to drown out the bad comments or do they just not happen?
No, they do happen. But I guess I've kind of had to program my brain to not hold on to them. And it's not easy to do. I mean, even people have responded to a couple things today and they weren't even negative, but it's just not positive, it's just enough to like nitpick me. Like you can just tell they're nitpicking the situation. It's not even personal. They're just nitpicking something. And I'm like, okay, I've got this. Like, this is my life. I know what's actually going on day to day, hour to hour. Um, but I guess I just remind myself, yeah, people are going to say what they want to say. The keyboard warrior thing is real. And then also a lot of people may just be well-meaning and I take it wrong. So yeah, I guess I do have to intentionally block out when there's a negative comment. And with the Triathlon Hour podcast and body image, there were definitely a few that were like, there was an overwhelming amount of support and positive comments, but there were definitely a few that were people. I mean, yeah. Sometimes I still get comments about it, like they just don't think I handled it well or something like that. So, but that's for them to think. And you know what? It comes back to I'm human. We're all human. I'm just trying to do the best I can in each decision I make and how I handle things. I mean, even with my pregnancy so far, I already like I wish I would have told people sooner. I wish I would have told my training partner Megan sooner because I just stressed myself out not telling people. And so I can already look back and be like, well, I did what I thought was best at the time, but man, I should have just told Megan I was pregnant because then I could have talked about it and like relieved some of the pressure that was building up in me. And I said in my podcast, I thought it was quite isolating to have to like keep the secret and I can't act myself or talk about this huge thing that's going on in my life. So yeah, I don't know. It just comes down to being human. It's the human experience and it can help other people. And some people will take it negatively and get on their keyboards and let me know, but I just try to not hold on to it. My husband's really good at that, actually. He's very much, it's really hard to ruffle his feathers. Like, I can do it, but for anyone else to, I mean, even for me to do it, it takes a lot. So I think I've learned some of that from him, or I'll go to him and be like, oh my gosh, listen to what this person said. And he's just like, he'll be like, who cares? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Okay. Like he doesn't feed into it. So I think that helps me as well.
Oh, that's beautiful. I know you've spoken in other podcasts and conversations that you don't necessarily have a desire to be a triathlon coach, at least right now. We'll keep that door open. But I mean, it seems like you've had a lot of experiences, and do you have advice for, people like me who I'm a coach? I know that a lot of our listeners are coaches on just how best to communicate with athletes on sensitive subjects. I mean, is this like an athlete driven conversation? Is this a coach driven conversation? Is it just coaches being open-minded to learning?
That probably depends on the topic. For example, if we're talking about weight and that sort of thing, I think that I don't think the focus should ever be weight. If the athlete wants to address their weight, then the athlete brings it up to the coach, right? And says, hey, and I did this actually with my first coach because I gained some weight when I started triathlon. And I wasn't comfortable with it. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like training way more than I ever have, and I weigh more than I ever have. And so I went to my coach and said, hey, I think I want to lose some weight. And he was like, great. I have a nutritionist I know who you can work with. And that's what he directed me to. And I think that's the right approach. But he was never like, yeah, you really should lose weight. Like he didn't make me feel bad about it. It was just like, hey, let's take it to the professional, like whose job it is to help with this. Because the thing with weight as well is a lot of times it's more just about getting the nutrition right, and the weight will take care of itself. So if like your nutrition's good, your hormones are good, things like that, I just believe you're going to be the right weight for yourself. So in that situation, I think it should be largely athlete driven. And if the coach is involved at all, it should simply be, hey, let's make sure your nutrition's dialed, and just probably outsource it. Because the other thing is weight is such an emotional topic. I just think it's better to keep that coach athlete relationship clean of it. It just stands to cause a lot of damage, like it frankly did with my relationship with my prior coach. So yeah, I think other sensitive topics, like I don't know what other sensitive topics would be. That's the biggest
pregnancy.
one.
I mean, I guess even like pregnancy, like some athletes do want to continue working with a coach through pregnancy. Yeah. And I guess that is probably one where a coach needs to be very open-minded and very listening to the athlete.
Yeah. I mean, like for me with that conversation, obviously I told David, he was very excited for me. And then he just asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, for me, I don't want training. I need a break. I want a break. This is nothing personal. I just need a break from all this and I want to do what's fun. And he's like, I totally understand. And I actually think that's one thing David is really good at. Like he will tell me his opinion on things. I've only been coached by him. It was only just over a year before I got pregnant. But I really appreciated how he would share his opinion on things when we would maybe bash heads over how things should be done a little bit. He would share his opinion, but he was very good at listening to mine as well. I always felt very valued. And ultimately, he puts the full control in like my hands. Like everything comes down to what I actually want to do because it's my success. It's not his. He's not doing this. Like obviously he's doing it, it's his living. He wants me to be successful, but there's no, I don't know, it's not for his glory per se. Like it ultimately is going to come down to my decision and I live with the consequences of it. And I'm sure if there was some extreme thing where he thought I was totally screwing over my season or whatever, then he would say. But I mean, even this year when we were planning the year and I decided, yeah, I'm doing 200. Basically, the plan for me was 200 and Nice. I guess race planning can be a sensitive subject.
Yeah.
Because some athletes want to just go do it all and it may be like, hey, that's not a good idea. But I wanted to try and do an Ironman because I do love Ironman, right? I love doing Ironman racing. And so I said, hey, what if we did like Placid? Like, what if we were able to sneak that in? I had it all planned out which T100 races I would do, and then there was room for Placid. And he was just like, well, my professional opinion is I don't think that's a good idea. If you really care about Nice, then I think trying to put in an Ironman build in the middle of the summer isn't the best way to be your best at Nice. But like if I said, no, I really want to do it, he probably would have let me. But he was just very good at giving his opinion without it getting like emotional. I don't know how to describe it, but just like, here's my professional opinion, take it or leave it. So yeah.
Definitely advice we can all learn from. You have spoken on your podcast about kind of going into even 2023 with a desire to reinvent yourself. And it does seem like you are now doing that as a mom. So can you talk about that desire to change and how you hope things might go in the years in the near future?
Yeah, well, I guess that desire wasn't even anything that I manufactured myself. It's just something that came to me, right? Like I didn't feel the same satisfaction out of triathlon, and that's not something that I was choosing. That's just how I felt. Like I would cross the finish line, I would win a race, and it wasn't the same thrill that it used to be. And part of that is probably triathlon is my job, but I do love triathlon. Like I want to keep doing triathlon, but I just recognize that maybe the fulfillment side, you know, when you win a race or you cross the finish line and have a great result and you're not even like over the moon about it, then you're like, oh, maybe I'm not as fulfilled by this. Maybe there's something else in my life that I need to explore or become, or, so I guess that made me, just those feelings made me ponder like, what is it? And Matt and I shared, my husband Matt and I had spoken about starting a family. So I knew that was something that would be in the near future, but I guess in a way it helped me be more excited about it and more on board about it, because I just know that having a child is going to completely change my life. And from what everyone says, it makes life amazing and like so fulfilling. And I'm sure also very exhausting, but I don't know. Yeah, the change, I don't necessarily have like this thing that I'm looking for, but what I imagine I will get is more fulfillment. And I think also just more fullness in my life. I think I talked about it too. Like I'm really good at just isolating myself and putting my head down and working on the goal that I want to work on, which for the last, I don't know, 8 years has been trying to become a really good professional triathlete. So I'm really good at isolating myself, but that means that maybe I don't have the fullest relationship or relationships, socialization, all those sorts of things. And so I think this will also bring maybe a bit more community into my life, or a bit more, I don't know, just fullness, connection. And that's actually something I've already experienced with the podcast, right? Like put yourself out there, people connect with you, and then they share with you. So that I'm really enjoying that element of this new thing I'm doing, the podcast and being pregnant and all that. Just it's a little more relatable, I guess.
It does. It is a great community, and hopefully all of our IronWomen listeners, if they haven't already, will check out Sky's the Limit podcast. And we can't wait for more episodes and just to keep following your story. Thank you so much, Skye, for coming on the show with me today. And
yeah, thanks for having me.
Best of luck. And yeah, we'll see you back on the race course, I'm sure, like sooner, so the time moves so fast. I'm like,
yeah, I know. I'll be racing.
Even when you say 10 months till Kona, it's like,
I know.
It feels like no time. So
I know.
But enjoy this time. Enjoy this time.
Yes,
I mean,
I'm trying to enjoy it. Yes.
Even if it's just cheese or cottage cheese on toast mostly.
Yeah.
That sounded delicious.
Lots of that. It's so good.
Okay. Well, I'll talk to you later, Skye. Thanks again.
Thanks, Haley. Bye.
Big thank you to Skye for joining me on the show today. It's great to hear about everything going on in her life right now, from pregnancy to podcasting. I'll be following Sky's the Limit podcast, and I'm very excited for her and her new adventures, and also excited for the days when she is back on the race course. Speaking of adventures, I can't wait to hear about Alyssa's adventures at RAM from the entire United States that she has just covered. We'll have all those stories next week on the show. As a reminder, if you're interested in the Fueled course, enrollment is open through June 28th, and you can find that information at womensperformance.com/fueled. And if you are looking for entertainment, remember, all those U.S. Olympic trials swimming is happening for the next couple of days. Track picks up this weekend, and we also have a lot of triathlon coming in the Paris Olympics. I know a lot of other countries are also doing their Olympic selections. It is an exciting year to be a sports fan, and I am here for it. I'm Haley Chura. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you again next week. You've been listening to the IronWomen podcast, hosted by Haley Chura and Alyssa Godesky.
IronWomen is a production of Feisty Media and is edited by Lydia Russell and produced by Ella Natition.
Head to livefeisty.com to find more podcasts, stories, and fresh perspectives.
Thanks for listening.